They thought she was just another quiet girl on a bench. They thought she would freeze, look away, let it pass. But what they didn't know was that she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. What starts as a quiet afternoon in a city, Park quickly unravels into a battle for dignity, justice, and the courage to break a system built to silence. In this true-to-life cinematic story, you'll witness the power of a single voice and the strength it takes to stand, when standing. Use all you've got. This is not just about one girl. It's about every woman who's ever been told to smile, every daughter who learned too early how to keep her keys between her fingers, every survivor who was asked, "Why didn't you say something?" She's saying it now, and we're listening. Stay till the end, because once you hear this story, you won't forget it. Some stories don't begin with screams. They begin with silence, not the kind that soothes, but the kind that thickens the air, the kind that makes the leaves stop rustling, the kind that makes the birds forget to sing. 17-year-old Isabel. Reyes sat alone on a sun-warmed bench in Sunset Park. A worn-out copy of The House on Mango Street rested in her hands, its pages curled at the edges like they'd seen too much. Like her. The sun filtered gently through the jacaranda trees. Above her, it cast lilac shadows across the stone path. She liked this part of the park. It was where the noise of the city faded, and her thoughts, finally, felt like they belonged. But peace doesn't always last, and silence isn't always safety. Footsteps, not rushed, not loud, but deliberate, measured. Isabel didn't look up right away. It wasn't uncommon for officers to patrol the area. But when the voice came, it didn't carry the weight of duty. It carried something slicker, darker. "Well, well," the man drawled. "What's a pretty thing like you doing out here all alone?" She froze. That voice didn't belong in sunlight. It felt like a shadow. Two men stood over her. Officer Mark Reynolds, tall, broad, mid-40s. His sunglasses mirrored the sky, but his smirk told a different story. Next to him, Officer Jake Thompson, nervous, younger, a little too quiet. Isabel straightened her back, closing her book. Slowly, she had been warned about cops like this. Her mother had warned her. Her community whispered about it. "I'm just reading," she said, her voice steady, her fingers clenched on the book's spine. "Looks like loitering to me," Reynolds said, stepping closer. His boots crunched against the gravel. "This is a public space." He chuckled. "Sure, but sometimes public places attract the wrong kind of attention." She reached for her backpack. "I have ID if you want it." But he wasn't listening. He didn't come for ID. He came to remind her that girls like her, quiet, brown, unimportant, weren't supposed to feel safe, not even in daylight. "Actually," he said, tilting his head, "how about a quick visual inspection first?" Before she could blink, his baton flicked. Just like that, the hem of her skirt flipped upward. Air rushed. Time froze. Humiliation burned. Isabel gasped, snapped backward. Her book fell to the ground. Her breath caught like it didn't want to leave her lungs. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she shouted. Her voice cracked, but didn't. "Break!" Officer Thompson flinched. He looked like he wanted to disappear, but he didn't speak. Reynolds grinned. "Relax, it was a joke." A joke. To him, it was nothing. To her, it was everything. Isabel stood up, not because she felt strong, but because she refused to feel small. "You think that's funny?" she asked. "You think this is okay?" Reynolds leaned in. "Only with girls who don't know anyone that matters." Those words lit something inside her, something ancient, something alive. She didn't yell, she didn't run. She reached for her phone, and with hands that didn't tremble, she dialed. It rang once, then a voice answered. "Tia Maria," she said. He lifted my skirt. Silence. Then, "Donde?" Sunset Park. South bench by the mural. "Estoy en camino." Isabel ended the call, sat back down, smoothed her skirt, and stared ahead like nothing had just happened. But something had. Because Detective Maria Alvarez was on her way. And she didn't knock. She didn't wait. She just walked in. Maria didn't come to ask questions. She came for answers. Her badge caught the sun as she stepped through the park gate. Each stride carved the path between fear and reckoning. She spotted them instantly. The way Reynolds stood too tall, the way Thompson looked away, and Isabel, sitting too still, too silent. Maria's chest tightened, not with fear, with memory. This wasn't the first time she found Isabel after something had broken, but it was the first time Isabel had called for her. She approached with purpose, one hand resting near her belt, her tone calm but lined with steel. "Officers, identify yourselves, badge numbers." "Now." Reynolds turned, slow, cocky, his mouth curled into a smirk. "Sorry, you are..." Maria flipped her ID open with a snap. "Detective Maria Alvarez, Internal Affairs." The words hit like a hammer, not loud, but final. Jake Thompson blanched. Reynolds blinked but held his pose. "We were responding to loitering." "Isabel Reyes was reading a book," Maria said flatly. "You think that's cause for an inspection?" Reynolds shrugged. "Depends on how suspicious she looks." "Suspicious?" Maria's eyebrow arched. "She weighs 110 pounds and is holding a paperback." A crowd was forming now, parents near the swings. A runner slowing to tie an already tight shoe. Phones were coming out, not as distractions, as evidence. Maria stepped in closer. "Did you touch her?" Thompson stammered. He... "Speak clearly." "I didn't," he muttered. "But I saw." Maria turned to Reynolds. "Well?" "She's exaggerating." Maria's voice was ice. "I'm not asking for opinions. I'm confirming conduct." Reynolds narrowed his eyes. "You can't. Just walk in here and..." "I can," she cut him off. "And I am." Her tone shifted. "Command now, not suggestion. Both of you, effective immediately. You are suspended pending full investigation." Gasps flickered through the crowd. Little boy whispered to his father. Someone started filming. Someone else already had been. Reynolds stepped forward. "You can't be serious." Maria didn't blink. "I'm not here for your comfort. I'm here for the girl you tried to humiliate." Then softly, she turned to Isabel. Her voice dropped, like a hand over a wound. "You did the right thing calling me." Isabel's lips parted, but she didn't speak. She just nodded. And in that nod, Maria saw it. Not just pain, but the return of something stronger. Dignity. Maria turned again, faced the watching park. "This will be documented. If anyone saw what happened, please stay nearby. Your statements matter." Then, for the first time since arriving, she exhaled. The fight had just begun, but the silence was already over. Maria didn't sleep that night. Not because of fear, because of fury. She sat at her desk, the overhead light too bright. The file on Mark Reynolds was thin, too thin. She knew what that meant. It wasn't that complaints didn't exist. It was that they'd been buried or erased. She logged into the department's restricted database, searched his badge number, cross-referenced patrol logs. Then she dug deeper. IA summaries, anonymous tip files, internal complaints. And there it was, the hidden pattern. Over the last 7 years, Reynolds had been the subject of 5 separate complaints, all dismissed, all involving Latina or black girls under the age of 25. 4 were labeled inconclusive. 1 had insufficient evidence. Maria frowned. That phrase was department speak for, "We didn't want the truth." She picked up the phone, not her work line, her old flip phone, the one she used when official channels couldn't be trusted. The first number she called didn't answer. The second did. "Hello? This is Detective Alvarez," she said. "I'm looking into Officer Reynolds." A pause. Then the woman on the other end whispered, "I tried to tell someone years ago." Maria's voice softened. "You still can." One by one, the stories began to surface. A girl who had been followed to her bus stop. A woman who had been pulled over and touched during a search. Another who said he threatened to arrest her unless she smiled for him. All different details. Same pattern, same officer, same silence. Until now. Maria met them where they felt safe. At a church basement, a community center, a diner booth with the blinds half closed. She brought no uniform, only a notebook and time. The women didn't cry. They didn't shout. They spoke with quiet precision. And when they did, Maria didn't interrupt. She listened, and she wrote. One of them, a school counselor named Angela Rivera, said, "He made you feel crazy, like maybe it really was nothing, like you should just be thankful it wasn't worse." Maria nodded, not because she agreed, but because she understood. By the end of the week, she had 6 statements, 4 with dates, 3 with possible witnesses, 2 with phone records. It was enough to start something, maybe even finish it. She placed the folder on her desk, heavy with stories, and then she added Isabel's name on the front. Because this wasn't just about Reynolds. It was about what the department allowed him to become, a man protected by silence, by paper walls. Not anymore. Maria stood, and the silence that once shielded him, it started to crack. The courtroom smelled like old paper and nerves. The air felt thick, not with heat but with history. People filled every seat, some press, some strangers, some witnesses who had once been silenced. Isabel Reyes sat in the witness chair. Her back, straight, her voice low. She wasn't theatrical, she wasn't tearful. She was precise. "He asked me if I was loitering," she said. "Then he said he needed to inspect me." Her fingers twitched slightly, but her gaze stayed forward. "He used his baton to flip up my skirt. In public, in daylight." Murmurs rippled through the gallery. The judge raised a hand. Order returned. The defense attorney stood. "Miss Reyes, did he touch you?" "No," she said clearly. "He didn't have to." That was the point. Silence. Then she added, "He humiliated me. That was the intent." Next came Angela Rivera. Then 3 others. Different stories, same tone, pain without pity, truth without decoration. "He pulled me over on a Tuesday," Angela said. "Told me I looked nervous, asked if I had something to hide." She paused. "He made me step out, told me to raise my arms. Then he searched me and smiled while he did it." Another woman described how Reynolds followed her for weeks. Another said he made jokes in front of other officers. None of them had ever been believed, until now. Then came Officer Jake Thompson. He looked pale, drained, like someone finally shedding a secret that had been burning his skin. "I saw it," he said. "I didn't stop him," his voice cracked. "I laughed because I was scared, because I thought if I said something I'd be next." The prosecutor nodded slowly. "Were there other times?" Thompson nodded. "Too many." He listed dates, places, other officers who had looked the other way. The defense tried to paint the women as mistaken, emotional, seeking attention. But they had records. They had each other. They had consistency. And in the end, they had the truth. Maria sat in the back row, hands folded, eyes sharp. She watched Isabel, watched Thompson, watched every single woman who chose to stand. She didn't speak, but her presence was felt. Because when justice walks in, it doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it comes in the form of a girl who refuses to look away, and a woman who never stopped watching. The jury was out for 3 hours, long enough to worry, short enough to hope. Isabel sat beside Maria in the hallway. No cameras, no microphones, just a buzzing vending machine, and a silence they both understood now. "I don't feel brave," Isabel said softly. Maria didn't correct her. She just replied, "You showed up, you told the truth, that's more than brave." The door opened, 12 faces, serious, steady. A folded piece of paper passed to the clerk, then to the judge. Everyone stood, the courtroom stilled. On the key, charge of misconduct under color of authority. A breath held, guilty. On the charge of harassment with intent to degrade. Guilty. On the charge of abuse of power. Guilty. Reynolds didn't react, not visibly, but his jaw clenched, and his eyes darted, like a man realizing the show was over. Maria watched as he was cuffed, watched as the badge that Once protected him became just another weight on his belt. Officer Thompson, now seated behind the prosecution, let out a breath he'd been holding for months. Outside, reporters gathered like birds. Inside, the women who testified didn't cheer. They didn't cry, they exhaled, because justice isn't loud, it's steady. And that day, it stood in heels and handcuffs. As Reynolds was led out, he glanced back. Not at the judge, not at the jury, but at Isabel. She didn't flinch, didn't blink, just held his gaze. Then she turned to Maria. "Is it over?" Maria shook her head. "No, but it's begun." The sun over Sunset Park looked different now. Same trees, same path, same old bench. But something in the air had shifted. Not just lighter, cleaner, like it had been holding its breath for years and finally let it out. Isabel returned to that bench, but she wasn't alone. This time she came with a folder in her hands. A thick dog-eared folder with post-it notes sticking out of it like flags. Maria walked beside her. No badge today, just jeans, sneakers, and a soft smile. They didn't say much. They didn't need to. They reached the bench and sat, quietly, purposefully. "I was scared," Isabel said. She ran her thumb along the folder's edge. "I know," Maria said. Her voice was low, warm. "But that's how you know it mattered." Isabel looked out at the playground in the distance. Children laughed, swings creaked, dogs barked, life went on. But she didn't feel like a bystander anymore. Inside the folder were names, stories, messages from women who had heard what she did, and decided maybe, just maybe, they could speak too. 34 have signed up, Isabel said. Most of them are high schoolers. A few are older women, one was 72. Maria's eyes widened, impressed. "What are you calling it?" Isabel smiled faintly. "The silent stand," Maria nodded slowly. "That's strong." A little girl in a yellow dress skipped up to them, held something in her hand, shy, hopeful. "Are you Isabel?" she asked. Isabel smiled. "I am." The girl handed her a note, scrawled in purple crayon. "You made my sister feel safe." Isabel blinked. Her hand went to her chest. She didn't cry. She just breathed. Maria reached into her jacket pocket, pulled out a small brass pin. It was shaped like an open eye. Simple, elegant. "This belonged to a friend of mine," she said. From back in DC, she used to say, "Justice isn't revenge, it's remembering." She pinned it gently to Isabel's coat. "You remember now." Isabel nodded. "And I'll help them do the same." They sat there a while longer. Two women, different generations, bound by something stronger than blood, truth, and the choice to speak it. Above them, a jacaranda blossom fell, soft, bright. And in that moment, for the first time in a long time, Isabel didn't feel broken. She felt real and ready. A new day had come, and this time she was wide awake for it. The days that followed didn't bring fanfare. There were no parades, no headlines shouting "Justice wins," but something deeper took root. In quiet corners of the city, women began to speak, not loud, but together. At Rosa's laundromat, a woman named Darlene told her daughter, "I knew a man like him once." At the public library, a student paused at Isabel's flyer and whispered, "I thought I was the only one." And at the back pew of St. Teresa's Chapel, a woman in a floral scarf left a folded note beneath the hymnals. "Thank you for standing. It gave me courage to remember." Isabel felt each message, each whisper, like threads pulling something, broken back together. She started weekly meetups at the community center. No podiums, no spotlights, just folding chairs in a circle. And a rule: you don't have to speak, but you are safe if you do. One evening, a woman named Carmen stood. She was 60. She hadn't spoken her truth in over 40 years. "I thought silence protected me," she said. "But really, it just kept me in the dark." Isabel reached out, held her hand. Nothing big, just enough. Maria came to every third meeting, sometimes just to listen, sometimes to answer questions, sometimes to remind them they weren't invisible. She never wore her badge, but her presence carried the same weight and more trust. One Thursday afternoon, a girl no older than 14 stood up, her voice trembling but sure. He tried to touch my friend, and we thought maybe it wasn't serious. Now we know. It always is. The room didn't clap. They nodded, and one woman said, "You're brave." The girl replied, "I'm not." But she was. She pointed to Isabel. Isabel smiled. Small, steady. That night, Isabel walked home alone. But she didn't feel alone. The city didn't feel the same. Maybe it never had. Maybe she was just finally seeing it clearly. She passed the courthouse, paused, and placed a sticker on the side entrance. White letters on a navy background. It read, "We remember." She didn't wait to see if anyone noticed. That wasn't the point. This wasn't about a single moment. It was a movement, a memory carried forward. And Isabel, she wasn't just part of it. She was one of the reasons it began. Some stories end with applause. This one ends with a challenge, because the courtroom doors may have closed. But the work is far from done. Isabel didn't stand so she could be admired. She stood so others could find their footing, and Maria didn't protect her because it was her job. She did it because she remembered what it felt like to be invisible. Now, it's not just about them, it's about us. The next girl, the next voice, the next time someone in uniform crosses a line and someone nearby decides to pretend they didn't. See it? Don't pretend. Don't scroll past. Don't forget what you felt just now, because justice doesn't end in a courtroom. It begins in moments, tiny ones. The decision to speak, the refusal to stay quiet, the hand you offer instead of looking away. So if this story moved you, share it, talk about it, act on it, because somewhere, a girl like Isabel is still waiting on that bench. And you might be the Maria she needs.